This is the Our Town with Troy By, and we have a cameo appearance from Rachel Sullivan from Solid Ground Counseling.
Yeah.
Yes, counseling. Last time I think I told you I kept wanting to call it consulting. How are you?
I'm good.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
We are recording on January 2nd,
It's beautiful.
2026. Oh my gosh. The last time you were here,
Yeah, when was that?
it was November of 21,
Okay.
and you were a few days shy of your 37th birthday.
Oh.
And I was a few days shy of my 47th birthday, which now means you're 40
That is true.
and I'm 50.
Happy late birthday.
So a lot has happened since then. Buc-ee's wasn't even open yet.
No.
Think about that.
Crazy.
We're going to get into, it's great to get an update on some of the things we talked about, but
Yeah.
I don't want to spend too much time on that.
I love it.
But there are a couple things I want to just quickly rehash from that episode 37.
Okay.
Part of Our Town is to explore where we came from, and then how much has that shaped, to what degree has that shaped kind of who that person is now, right? And the things that
Yeah.
they're doing. So, in a nutshell, Rachel's from a family of 6 siblings, second of 6, first girl.
Yep.
Randy's the oldest.
Correct.
All right. And then I think there was Sam is in there somewhere. Amy's in there somewhere. Mackenzie? No.
That's close. Sam's my husband.
No, there's another Sam, though, isn't there?
Sarah.
Is there a Mackenzie?
That's my baby sister.
And then a Christopher?
Correct.
Okay. Springfield, Illinois.
Yeah.
4-H. Homeschooled from 3rd grade on.
Yep.
And one of the coolest things I think about when you learn about someone is that you were proficient with small engine repair. And I want to come back to something related to that later. But
Okay.
then you went into the Army, kind of realized as a teenager that was likely going to be the route if you wanted to go to college and
Yes.
have somebody pay for it. And then ultimately, different stops, deployments, and then you move from Tennessee to here.
Yes.
Right. And you have, is it just 2 grandchildren? Or do you have more than 2 now?
Oh my gosh, we have 5 and a bonus grandkid at this point now.
Whoa.
Yeah. So lots changed.
Yeah, you were expecting the 2nd grandchild when you were here last.
Okay. Wow.
think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been a minute.
Wow, 5. We're at 1.
Yeah, we had a running joke in the house because we thought maybe we were going to be expecting another one last year, but our daughter and her boyfriend had their first together in October last year, and we were taking bets whether our son was also going to be adding another one.
Yeah.
And so we were like, is it going to be 5 or 6 grandkids before 40? So anyway, we ended up with 5 and a bonus, so 6, I guess.
And how often do you get to see them?
So our daughter lives right down the road from us, so we
Okay.
see them 3 or 4 times a week. And I got a set of car seats for both of those grandbabies. And
Yeah.
the ones that live in North Carolina, they were actually up for Thanksgiving. We don't get to see them super often every year, so So I mean, not nearly as often as I would like. It's a little hard balancing still being in the middle of a career and
Yeah.
being a grandparent because I don't get to do that full time, right? And that's hard. But I also think kind of a cool season to be a very young Mimi. So
Yeah, so you're Mimi?
I am Mimi.
My wife is in the studio, and her grandma name is Noni.
I love that.
What is Sam's grandpa name?
Papa.
Papa?
Mm-hmm.
You'll never guess what mine is.
Tell me.
Bobo.
I love it. Where did that come from?
Well, we had a different one picked out for me,
Okay.
but, part of, I guess, the fact that we're all living longer, growing up, there was no great-grandparents alive.
Okay.
But yet my grandson now has how many? Three great-grandparents alive? Yeah, 3. Which is
Okay.
whoa, that's
That's a
crazy.
lot, yeah.
I didn't know anybody that had a great-grandparent that was alive when I
Yeah.
was a kid, right? And then your grandparents, or I feel like you can't see, the people online won't be able to see it, but there's a picture of an old man in the studio, or the guy who carries the shovel in Home Alone. That's what this guy looks
Yeah.
like. That is like a grandpa to me. But I'm only 50.
Right.
You're 40.
Right.
We're grandparents. Holy smokes. and I think we look pretty good, for our
Agreed.
age. So, but the problem is then all the names are taken.
Yes.
Their Pop's already used up, and Papa was mine, and like that's off limits. I'm
Okay.
not, but then so like what's left?
Right.
And I don't even remember. I was going to be something else, and then my son came up with, no, let's go with Bobo. I'm like, okay. There's a clown named Bobo, but
That's true.
there's also a grandpa now named.
And that's a really easy set of syllables for little kids,
Yeah.
which is important.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's getting mangled anyway.
He's struggling. He's struggling with he can say Noni. He tries to say her name, I think, more than me.
Okay.
And he utters things, and it doesn't sound anything like Bobo, but we know that's what he's saying.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah. And your family, your kids, do you have 4 kids?
Yeah.
They're doing well?
They're huge. Oh my gosh. Our youngest is 15 next Tuesday. So we have the morning blocked off to go get his driver's permit. So if you guys see me around town, just mind your business if I'm crying. So
His permit. Oh my gosh.
He's super excited and I'm pumped for him. But also Facebook today showed me a picture pregnant with him, right? And he was due 4 days from then and he was super late. And so I'm like 11,007 weeks pregnant in this picture. And so I showed it to him this morning. He was like, God, you were fat. And I'm like, I was all belly. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But I was incredibly pregnant.
Yeah.
15 years ago. So, yeah.
Gosh, there's so much I want to get into with you, but I think we should talk about Hannah,
Okay.
who's your employee.
Yes.
Lives across the street from us.
She's a contractor.
She's a
but
contractor. Okay. Sorry. You work together.
We work together.
And there was a house that was for sale. It's kind of kitty corner to where we live.
Yeah.
And they're moving in. And then I'm like out. I think I was going out for a run. And I'm like, I think that's Rachel.
It's so random.
And then you're like, Troy? And I'm like, Rachel? And it's like, oh, so you were helping them move in, which I
Yes.
think is extraordinary. But I bring that up because shortly thereafter, then the tornado came down our street.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And
What
it
a
got
year.
their house, got our house, and then the one across a street from me got torn up pretty bad. So that's the one everyone saw in the news.
Yeah. Yeah. But there was a lot of damage on the street.
Yes, there was.
Yes.
And then it was just crazy because then it's like on trash day, everyone has all of the trees that have come down in their yard out for pickup that were there for a week or two. It was strange.
Right. Yeah.
Like just totally changed people's yards.
Absolutely. It's wild how much something such as a tree can completely change the way that your house looks from the front or an angle, but yeah.
And then get you in trouble with the HOA when you're now like not meeting the requirement. Like, well, our thing got blown away.
Right. We had a tornado hit our house. So yeah.
They were trying to complain at us about something. I'm like, we had a tornado go through, right? And, these things, like, it takes time to get through insurance.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
And a contractor. And,
and when a storm like that hits, everybody's booked up. So, yeah, it's a minute.
Well, and sadly, there's those that were knocking doors, contractors, as it had just left the neighborhood.
Oh,
and they're immediately like, oh, hey, you guys going to need some repair? Praying, if you will, on those. That, can we just clean up first, and can we assess this? We actually should probably contact our insurance, and then we'll be happy to call you. But it's just really sends a weird signal.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So big update for you. I was going to ask you about, but I also see that it's already dropped off. But can you talk about when you were here last time, your credential, your CFLE, and something dropped off?
Yes.
That there was a 5th letter to that.
There was.
And you had said that somewhere over the by 2025, which is now past us, that would drop off.
Yeah.
So can you, if you're looking at the screen, licensed marriage and family therapist, and then the CFLE P, if you could let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah, really quick. So certified family life educator, the P stood for provisional. So I had a certain number of years to complete the work hours necessary for that. So I had actually passed the exam for that. the week that the world shut down from COVID. And then, so I think when we met in 2021, I was kind of in the process of the 1,600 documented hours that I had to do for that. So I finished that last year, got that done in May, I think it was. And just a really cool thing I had started working on that way back in my undergrad and knew that that was something I wanted to pursue eventually. So getting that done was incredible, and being able to just drop that P was.
And there were 10 like target areas, right? Where those hours
Content.
had content. And can you just talk a little bit about that? And kind of, I think you had at the time saying, yes, this is going to take some time.
Yes.
1,600 hours, and you may not be able to focus on every one of those things. That's why it takes so long, right?
Right.
Like, how am I going to get the necessary? I guess I didn't understand, were there a minimum set of requirements for each of the 10 subcategories in hours?
Okay. No, at the end of the day, the 1,600 hours just had to be total. It wasn't divided where you had to have a certain number of hours in each of those categories. And a lot of people, depending on what their other credentials are or what they do for their full-time work, the bulk of their hours are going to be kind of related to whatever their primary job is, which is certainly how mine went. So things like human development or human sexuality, the pieces that really impact family law and policies, that's more relevant to my work. And so that was where the bulk of my hours were really at. And so that was the process of getting those 1,600 hours. Some of that overlapped with my normal work that I was doing. So there's a couple of programs that I'm certified in that I do for premarital counseling, that portions of that fit into that CFLE work. And so just documenting that. But the bulk of my work week doesn't fall into that, right? So then it was different partnerships to get some of that other stuff done and be able to document some of those hours. And so it's, the 1,600 hours when you're doing it on top of your full-time job.
Yeah.
They give you 5 years to finish it, and it took me every bit of that.
Gotcha. Were you stressing it at any one point? Did you not get as many in a particular calendar year as you had hoped? And like, man, I really hope in 2024, I can.
It was definitely, so the beginning part of that, right when I passed my exam, I really didn't even start it until probably closer to when we had talked last. And so then, I did the bulk of those hours across that next 3 years because I wasn't even sure. Business got so busy, and then the practice grew really quick after we moved into our current location. And so it took me a minute to get my footing, and then also figure out what all fit into those categories, because when you're submitting that at the end, you want to make sure that those hours are valid and you're not going to get kicked back, right? And so making sure that what I was submitting actually fit into those categories cleanly, and that I could account for all of those. And so even just building a tracking system, I was like, I got to figure out how to organize this. And that made it a lot easier. Once I did that and I realized some of the things I was already doing fit into it, it kind of helped me understand, okay, it's not going to take me as long. And then really once I went in and was able to figure out what parts of it fit, super easy. So
what are you using to track it?
Google Sheets.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, spreadsheets are pretty dang powerful.
That is my lifeline. Yeah.
Actually, there's a Google Sheet I'm going to show you here shortly.
Okay.
So I don't want to touch too much on episode 37 because the whole point is for people to go back. And there's a couple other podcasts that you link on your website that take you to other shows that you've done, right?
Sure.
For people. But at the end of the day, this field, you're in a segment of a field that I think, and the reason I wanted you on is kind of that our first episode of Launching Back is this field, the subset in psychology, right? When we're looking at our minds and the stresses, and depending on how old you are, you've lived through life or you haven't. So either COVID was something like, I've lived through things like this before, or it's completely unprecedented to you and difficult and traumatic. And then, depending on your line of work, now we have this Doge thing and there's these layoffs, and how do you deal with this? And so in my line of work, my normal job, I run the insider threat campaign for a company that for Mantech across all of government.
Right.
So I used to manage a very important program, which was ours at the CIA. And then we also have another intelligence agency that we do stuff at. And about 10 years ago, we started having behavioral psychologists work with our analysts. We're supporting investigators who are investigating people,
Right.
for a myriad of things, and that number of myriad has grown as it's not just about espionage anymore. It's about also wellness and welfare and like harm to self, harm to others. There's just so many different aspects to the insider, just the employee, and how are they doing, and who are they, if they are up to nefarious activity, who are they in cahoots with?
Right.
Who are they working for, or what's motivating them? Why does a shooter shoot someone?
Right.
So it's fascinating. And so now I'm seeing it, and my job is to go after these kinds of contracts. Well, guess what? It's not just a consultative thing anymore. Now it's we want you to hire psychologists onto your program. They're going to work 40 hours a week, with your program. Like,
Sure.
Whoa, that's different. So the importance of having people with the right skill sets.
Organizational wellness.
Organization. Some of it's, in our area, it's a lot of data science and working with your data scientists, because a lot of times you're pouring through data first before you're actually like interviewing someone.
Sure.
But I really just find it all important, and more important than it's ever been, because you also have, I think, and there's been a lot of advances. Last time we talked about mental health, and we talked about the positive and negative connotations with that, and a lot of times it's more negative.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, let's all recognize that we are all in some spectrum of mental health, whether it's I'm mentally well or I'm mentally ill.
Right.
But everyone falls somewhere on that spectrum.
Yeah.
And I want to get into the neurodivergent stuff a little bit with you today, because that also seems to have taken on wait a minute, let's not just cast all these people who are neurodivergent that have ADHD or whatever it is, or they're on the spectrum.
Sure.
And what do you call everybody else? Everyone else is just normal.
Yeah.
Okay, we're probably not normal.
Definitely not.
Like the industry is catching up in a way, or retraining us. So we even talked about suicide, and you correctly corrected me on, we don't say commit suicide.
Right.
We say they suicided, right? Or
died by
suicide.
Right.
And so it's just re-educating our population and being a little bit more caring and compassionate in the words that we use, right? Yeah. So let me do this first. I'm going to bring up a picture.
Okay.
So if you look at your screen, this is the neurodivergent umbrella.
Okay.
And so part of this is, you show something like this to somebody like you, because, and I didn't really finish my point, but you have like, I should also change the screen to there. Nope. Hold on. I need to, there we go. We'll just go with that for today. There's psychotherapy, there's psychiatrists, and then there's counseling. There's just all these different. But I think, it's not necessarily this. I don't want to like focus on how are you different and distinct. All of you are playing a very important role.
Yeah.
And under this huge umbrella to get people the services that they need, whether it's a diagnosis or medicine or just someone to talk to, figuring out where they're at and giving them what they need. So have you, can you talk about neurodivergence and just in this and kind of what that means?
Sure.
From more of rather than just somebody like me, it's like, I think I kind of understand it. And what's the little bit more of the educated, 2-minute overview that you can give someone?
Yeah. So I love this. And this has actually been a topic that you're correct. It's definitely hit mainstream, mental health media over the last couple of years. And it's been something that I've learned a ton about, because one of our addition since we spoke last is our therapist, Elizabeth, and she has both autism and ADHD. And working with her over the last few years, she started with me as a clinical intern. And so being able to figure out, how to really grow myself as a leader in that space has been powerful. And what I've learned about neurodivergence in that time frame, from somebody who has that lifelong lived experience, has been really cool. And my takeaway from that is really just that neurodivergence is the term that we use when somebody's brain processes information differently than whatever the heck normal means, right? And so as you can see, there's all kinds of stuff on here, right? It impacts things like focus, right? But also how well somebody's able to sit still, or how the sensory processing piece, right? Like, how does this fabric fit on or feel on, my body as I'm wearing it? The things that kind of impact our ability to go through the day to day and fit into what society has created as a structure of normal. Neurodivergence is something that's going on in the brain that impacts that person's ability to kind of go through the structure that society set up as normal. And that for me is really where I think it's powerful, because the neurodivergence is something that tends to get talked about from like a them perspective. And where my lens has really been widened in there is, we as a society, as a nation, as communities, right? We set up these processes or these ways that you go about going and getting your driver's license, right? And those are really created for the person that doesn't have an issue with anything on this screen. But the reality is, most people have got something going on that impacts how they process information. And so then we're like upset as humans when we have to take into account the fact that people experience things differently, right? Mm-hmm. And so neurodivergence, I think, is way more common than we probably realize that it is. And that's why I think it's a little more popular recently, or people are seeing it, or there's more diagnosis of it, kind of in society. I think that it's been around for a long time, but our understanding of it, and maybe acceptance is a weird word in that space, but our acceptance of it as like, this is legitimate, has definitely increased recently.
So several questions from that. So from the patient's, the client, I shouldn't say patient, the client's perspective, is there you were just kind of touching on it, where they have a strong interest in, like, just tell me what I am. I need to know what label to put on myself. And if you're unable to do that, does that really then frustrate them, or they want closure in a way? Or sometimes they're like, what is wrong with me? And you like look at this whole chart, and then there's some further discouragement if there's no clear cut, like, I just want to know what's wrong with me. Does that make sense?
I think so. So, I mean, by and large, I don't know that a lot of people are searching for a what's wrong with me, and they're necessarily going to fall into the neurodivergent category. I think, honestly, just from my experience, a lot of the clients that are coming into the room who are neurodivergent, they already know that. They've been living that life their whole life, right? So they've been kind of on the outskirts of everything for a long time, right? They've known that they don't think like everybody else does, or they come to different conclusions, or they need a little bit of a different setup or a structure in order to be really successful, right? Mm-hmm. And so they know that about themselves. If I'm being honest, a lot of the people that are coming in going, what's wrong with me, are not necessarily the people that fall cleanly into this category, except for maybe, the trauma categories.
How long, so you had said people, I've already known that, but the term neurodivergent, is this within the last 5 or 10 years, the 15 years, like what the labeling, if you will, and putting all these things under that umbrella, is this relatively new in kind of educating, citizens, if you will, sure. of the criticality of this field, and also then not, working to isolate or ostracize, right, people that have this and say,
yeah.
that term neurodivergent, because I think just personally, I hadn't really, this isn't my field, of course,
Sure.
but I know there's ADHD and there's, it used to be ADD, and like you kind of feel like, okay, there's been more things that have come to the surface. Autism. Oh my gosh, there's so many more kids on the spectrum, but I had never seen it all under this umbrella of neurodivergence.
Sure. So I think that is probably new, but the rest of these items that are up here have existed in some sort of diagnostic manual for a while, right? And so I think that it's more about recognizing the processing portion of it and formally putting all of those into a category of, hey, these things, the thing that they share is that in each of these diagnoses, there is a part of the brain or parts of the brain that are impacted, usually by some sort of trauma or just the different ways that those synapses fire. And that causes this outcome of the brain requiring some different processing space. And I think that the more research that we've done about each of these has allowed us to realize that similarity is more similar than we used to think that it was. And that is where neurodivergence as this kind of catch-all umbrella has come from. And I think that in some ways that's really helpful. And I think in others, we like to, as humans, categorize things, and we do that so that it feels like safe and clean and understandable, right? And so I think in some ways, putting everything under that umbrella is nice. And a lot of people are going to go, oh my gosh, okay, cool, neurodivergence. And it goes under that umbrella. And then we fold it up and just tuck it in the corner and kind of forget about it. But also, everything that's underneath of here presents completely different than everything. Any one item on here looks very different than the other presentationally. And you could have 5 people in the same room with tic disorders, and it's going to look different in all of those people. So I think we've also got to be really careful to go, yes, all of these are examples of neurodivergence. And at the end of the day, every person that is in that category is still a person. And the way that diagnosis impacts them is going to vary widely.
So now let's talk about the term holistic.
Okay.
So I think I came across some research or in a way to say, okay, let's say, I don't know, 40% of the population is neurodivergent. And what do you call the rest of the 60%? Not normal or something, but this holistic is, okay, if you're not neurodivergent, then you fall in this. And again, not to call it normal or typical, but so can you speak to, is there efforts underway or what's the proper way to then label the quote unquote normal
Everybody
people?
else.
Everybody else.
Right now, the primary term that gets used is neurotypical.
Neurotypical.
Sure. And again, in that there's still going to be a range, right? I am neurotypical in that I don't have any diagnosis that's underneath of this umbrella. But anybody that knows me knows that I do not like to wear long sleeves. I cannot stand the way that fabric feels in my armpit, y'all. I can't. It drives me nuts. This is a tank top under this blazer because you will not catch a girl in long sleeves unless it is really cold outside. And if I've got a lot of layers on,
the blazer, even nothing long sleeved, like even your jacket, or just the one that's touching your skin?
It's more about how it feels in my armpits, right?
Oh.
So it's not technically bad enough to be a sensory processing disorder, okay? But everybody's got stuff that can fall or sort of mimic what's on here. So even though per a technical diagnostic, realm, I don't fall into one of these cleanly. Even neurotypical people have stuff that can kind of look like this. And so that I think is where your terms or the labels, right, can kind of come into play where you're like, okay, yeah, the 3 of us in this room may technically be neurotypical, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to have stuff that impacts us that may look a little bit like something of that nature. But I think in that, we need to be really careful to not say oh yeah, I know what it feels like to have a sensory processing disorder. I'm like, no, I just don't like stuff on my armpits,
Yeah, it's not like a phobia. It's just like a discomfort.
Yeah, I don't like tight shirts in my armpits. I would rather have a tank top and something a little looser over it. So No. A lot of the time that just kind of comes down to, and I think for me, one of the things that's really powerful under here and the lens that I look at, clients and just sort of presenting problems, there is really on the left side of the umbrella, you have that PTSD, CPTSD diagnosis. And so many of the clinicians today are kind of moving away from, and there's a little bit of a revolution happening where we're really questioning the DSM, right? We've been using this in the field of psychology and behavioral health for a long time, and it's kind of the Bible of how to figure out what somebody's diagnosis is. But because the longer that we've used it and the more people, clinicians have assessed and treated, we're really realizing that a case of ADHD can look so very different. And so things go undiagnosed, right? Or misdiagnosed. And that can be more harmful than never having diagnosis in the first place. If you're treating something, but you're treating it as bipolar disorder, and really what you have is CPTSD. These are two very different things, And so kind of looping back around to your brother, depending on, what's gone on so far and how that's impacted how his brain is processing stuff, and then anytime you introduce substance or whatever it is that can kind of trigger that addiction piece, and then that just hijacks the brain. And we know that from all kinds of research and scans and stuff. And so that's super, super hard to move away from, stuff like that. And so when you've got these life experiences or things that have happened to you that you didn't have any choice over, we really don't know enough about the brain to know how those things truly impact the outcome, right? Yeah. So
what's the C before PTSD? CP, what is it?
Stands for complex.
Complex, okay.
Yeah. And kind of it is that, right? It's just kind of an extra layer of it. And a lot of the diagnosis in that particular area, the delineation between PTSD and the complex PTSD is that PTSD is relational in nature. So then the healing portion of it is really hard because so much of the healing that happens in the therapy room, especially from my lens, is really grounded in how safe we're able to get ourselves to feel. And a lot of the time people are a huge part of being able to learn how to re-regulate ourselves. And so when that trauma has started with somebody else, especially a primary caregiver, somebody who's a key attachment figure, then it really, really, really messes with how the brain views closeness in the future, right? So that impacts the therapeutic relationship because you have a client that comes in and it's incredibly hard to build rapport with somebody who is constantly got their guard up because people have caused the trauma, right? So it's
gotcha.
It's a big deal.
So we can move away from neurodivergence, but within the past 4 years, well, I shouldn't even say that. What are some of the more common new trends of things that your office is getting requests, I guess, topically, that things are falling under? Maybe, presumably, there's traditional services and things that you were providing, and now within maybe post-COVID, just the times we live in now, is there more demand on certain services?
So I would say traditionally things that people come in around, in the couples realm, it'd be like, oh, we have communication issues. And then if individuals are coming in, the bulk of what people would mention is, depression or anxiety. And those three topics definitely still exist. The uptick in requests for couples work over the past few years has been unprecedented. I mean, it's a huge part of our work at this point, and the feedback, I think, from that across the board, at least within our practice, is really that the way that the world has gone the last few years has changed the structure of households so much, but also what people are taking in from, societal norms and just relationship structures, and kind of what they're being fed is impacting how we're trying to pair up with people. And so, we've got these kind of innate desires to be in relationships, and also this input that's kind of contradicting what maybe some of our biological drives are telling us. And so figuring out how to combine lives at this point feels much more challenging than maybe it has in the past. And I think the stress that people have been under, the being in somebody else's physical space 24/7 is much more challenging to the individual nervous system than it used to be. So I think that's probably been the biggest trend, I would say, is just that increase in couples counseling. And then big uptake too in OCD. There's just, I think, this need for some semblance of control in the wake of several years of not really having any. And so the way that I think post-pandemic coping is happening is showing up in these ways that people are then kind of manifesting some OCD type symptoms. And that's hard to watch too, right?
Interesting.
Just, seeing people, start to put some structures into place, and then it just takes over, kind of creates a life of its own. So,
let's do this. I'm going to bring up the next graphic.
Okay.
Because
you could get in the weeds on that one.
That's a spreadsheet that you put together.
Yeah.
Let me switch this. And there's a lot of reasons I brought this up.
Okay.
And it's funny because I can't really see anything without my glasses anymore.
Okay. It's that Bobo life now.
So I'm bringing this up so this is on your website.
Yeah.
And if you were to go to the Meet the Team section, I think this is great information though, right? So Rachel and her staff and the contractors, if you will, employees that are there, and all of the services, the therapy types on the left, and then the areas where Rachel either does something or she doesn't do something, right? So there's a lot of reasons I bring this up. Part of that last question was kind of like, and I'm not asking to do this, but you got involved in solid ground, and maybe your therapy type list was so big, and then over the last 4 or 5, 3, 2, 1 years, whatever, it maybe gets a little bit bigger, and then you got to bring on a new consultant, because maybe somebody like Elizabeth, in a couple cases, is the only one at your office that handles that.
Right.
There's actually, interestingly, there is nowhere where you are the only one.
Yeah.
I think.
I think you're
maybe
correct.
by design.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's by design, which, again, these are observations as a data person, right? And I look at this as a few different ways. But so, obviously, if that's not your thing, but it's a new trend. Yeah. And then you're going to bring in someone. You put on your business hat, if you will, and you figure out how you're going to meet that need of your clients, right? Maybe we can talk about any aspect of this. Some of that is, and it's not like focus on your deficiencies, but let's kind of dovetail from the question I just asked, okay, and maybe the newer folks you've brought on your staff to address some of these key areas. Yeah. Anyone in particular that, unless you want to start with Elizabeth, or any one of these therapy types?
Oh goodness, they're all amazing. I love my team. Let's just say that first and foremost. I know sometimes when I speak about our team and just who has joined Solid Ground in the last few years, I think people sometimes think I'm just blowing smoke. And when I say I'm so proud of this team and who they are and how they show up to serve people, I am so, so, so honored to work alongside of them. Seriously. I mean, they're incredible, and I absolutely love celebrating them. And interestingly, I will get to your question, but one of the reasons people have asked, we've grown, And yet I still answer the bulk of the phone calls that come to the office. And people have asked, why do you guys not have a receptionist? And I've said over and over and over again, nobody sells and believes in my team like I do.
Yeah.
You know, when everybody comes on, I'm learning about who they are and what are the clients that they really specialize in and where do they want to make the biggest impact, right? And I'm learning that and I'm committing that to memory, and I continue to meet with them all the time so that as those things grow and evolve, I can, update that information. And so when somebody calls Solid Ground and they're talking about what they're going through, I'm already formulating a picture of who's a good fit for them. And I'm not at a place yet where I'm ready to relinquish that, right? Because again, yes, their success is my success, but every client that's fitted with a therapist that's an excellent fit because I know those people, that's somebody who has a higher likelihood of a positive therapeutic outcome, right? And so right now, that's worth my time,
Yeah.
And so as all of these checks or these X's are in these lines, this is data, but this is also each one of those therapists' heart, And so if you sit down and you talk with any of these people, you know that as they think about that client who has an eating disorder, and I'll just use Dalal because she's kind of in this third category here, right? She's so passionate about that, right? And she really wants to be able to help people who have an unhealthy relationship with food, however that's manifesting, and how she looks at that from this non-judgmental perspective and, right, what's kind of led to that being the case, and how does she help that person move towards having healthier relationships with food, right? And when that's happening in the context of a couple, how's she approaching that? And so each of these therapists is on here and, they fill this out, and I'm the one that updates this sheet, right? Because I want it to be representative of where they're at in whatever current season. And so it's really, this graphic came to be a thing last year, and it's really a powerful visual of how we've been able to round the team out to really serve a little bit of everybody, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, to kind of comment on the reason you need to triage or why it works for you, like you're gonna, the person can do the best they can, but they're not licensed like you are,
sure.
right? So it's gonna save time. It's gonna save that conversation is gonna have to happen anyway.
Sure.
That next level.
Yeah.
But I think the reason I'm showing this is you're not the quarterback. The quarterback then would be where, well, Rachel's handling that. Rachel's handling that. Rachel's handling that. Like, no, you're actually kind of more the coach or general manager of like, you are hiring people to meet with the clients on a lot of tough areas. And again, there's no particular area where only Rachel in the office handles it. That actually doesn't happen at all.
Thank goodness.
So now you have actually set yourself up for when you come to Solid Ground from the beginning. We're not going to waste your time. And by being able to talk to you, you are now being able to plug that person in, that client, into the best fit from the beginning. Yeah.
Very few people call and are getting set up with me, right? I'm most of the time full, which is beautiful. And so I take what we call internal referrals, right? If somebody else has got somebody that they're working with and I kind of have the specialization for that, then they'll come to me. But by and large, when I'm taking those phone calls, I'm figuring out where else they fit in the practice. And that's a huge part of my love too.
Yeah, I feel the same way as I do a lot of interviews of candidates. I've actually been interviewing for 19 months for one program.
Oh my goodness.
For 4 particular people.
Wow.
And it's hard. And so most of my first interviews are just, and I have the luxury of like, I'll take as much time as I need. They don't necessarily know that.
Okay.
But I know that. But I also don't change my style, even if I didn't have a lot of time. Like, you're going to interview with me 2, maybe 3 times. Because in the first interview, I'm not going to even ask typical stuff. It's just going to be, I'm not even going to look at your resume. I'm just going to talk to you. Why are you here? What are you looking for?
Yeah.
Like some of this goes to, and I want to talk to you about this too, like when your industry is progressing so fast, and now we're in the technology and there's AI and all this stuff, right? And if you're 50 something years old, like I'll ask, like, what do you do when you go home from work? How do you spend your time?
Yeah.
Are you spending some of your time, because if you can't do it at work on client time, what are you doing to improve your skill set and your knowledge?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah.
And so
Great.
it goes to show you the people that are actively trying to manage their career,
Right.
actually trying to progress and do
Yeah,
more, versus
absolutely.
the people who just, well, I just got this job and I come to my job, and that's fine. You need those kind of people, but sometimes I'm not looking for that kind of person either, right?
Yeah.
And then the next interview, they come in with a little bit different. They're a little more comfortable.
Yeah.
They start
I've got an
giving you
idea
more-
of kind of where things are going.
They got a little more. They'll give you some real answers. They feel
Yeah.
like they've built this relationship. And then I start hitting them with like, let's really dive into some of these claims you make on your resume, right? Talk to me about that. But are your clients, are you seeing success in being a marriage and family therapist and the counseling side? I'm going to make a supposition that there's probably been too much on the on like the psychiatrist side, where maybe people are being prescribed too quickly with medication. I think maybe we talked about this some too, like, hey, maybe there needs to be more counseling and more analysis of someone, of their problems, or just listen to them before we start prescribing things. Have you seen advances or a better positive trend towards spending more time in counseling and such, and they're thus for avoiding the mixed diagnosis, or avoiding maybe the next step? Yes, maybe you do have to refer out to a psychiatrist.
Sure.
And even if you do, is the right treatment plan being prescribed? Can you talk about that? Does that make sense?
So the question is, am I seeing a trend towards there being maybe a heavier emphasis, a primary emphasis on the counseling side of things versus just a direct path to medication?
Yes. Some of that could have been self-diagnosed. My son's OCD.
Sure.
And they go right to a psychiatrist and give him the OCD medicine, and let's nip this in the bud, versus like, hey, maybe your son needs to spend some time with a counselor, and let's
figure out why.
Let's figure out why.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that this is probably, and I will just speak unique to kind of solid ground and my circle, right, of therapists. But I think that the answer there is yes and no. I think that the newer wave of psychiatrists are young enough that their outlook on mental health is more in line with the fact that there needs to be more conversation before we get straight to a pharmaceutical. And I do think that a lot of the people that are coming into that field now are doing a more efficient job of having a conversation with people before they go straight into that. And I know that we get quite a few calls for people that start therapy with somebody at the practice who their psychiatrist has said, I'm going to prescribe this and you need to go start therapy. And when we check in 6 months, I want to know what you've been doing, because I don't want you on this for forever, right? So they may have come in and recently they've had some sort of life-altering event or, traumatic experience, and there's a pharmaceutical that's been prescribed so that the person can kind of deal, right? And the psychiatrist doesn't want to leave them there. And so that's not their main shtick, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're making sure that therapy is also happening. And I do think that there is more of that going on now, which is really beautiful. And then I also think that there's people that are just doing more of the therapy side of things versus getting straight into the pharmaceuticals, because the conversation around mental health has expanded so much in the last few years. And some of that is good. A lot of it is good. And then there are also pieces of it that are not good, right? You've got these, and no disrespect if you are a therapist on TikTok, but we call them TikTok therapists. And
60 minutes or 60 seconds or less, right?
Yeah. And that's really, is part of our ethical code that we have to be really, really careful about the information that we share on public platforms, because you hold so much influence based on your licensure level and your your experience, right? And so we are supposed to be really careful about that. So I think that it can be dangerous when you've got somebody that's on there who's spreading a bunch of information that is kind of for the masses, because I don't think that mental health care needs to be approached in a for the masses type of way. I think that being able to learn people, and there's general information, obviously our social media, we put information out that is kind of for the masses, but you will notice on our social media that it is very intentionally not hyper specific, right? And that's so that you get a feel for who we are as a practice, and then you pick somebody to work with, whether that's us or somewhere else, and you continue your journey there, right? But we're not trying to do any treatment on our social media. And so I think that the downside of that is that, there's also a lot of people who are going and they're watching a video and they're going, oh, I have OCD because I watched so-and-so on TikTok and they said blah, 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 right? And so then they come in and they have self-diagnosed, and I'm going, you have trauma, right? But there's you don't have OCD, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, I like to clean a lot. And I'm like, well, so do I, but I don't have OCD. So, yeah. So it's actually how I cope with stress. So, yeah. So.
Well, so I asked that, kind of continuing on with, yes, you're a licensed therapist, but you're also the founder, the owner, right? CEO of your company. So much of your time needs to be spent and also building the network of partners and having a feel for what's available in the area for on a couple different levels. And this is going to be a good segue into what you want to talk about with some exciting things coming up. But so part of the trending is also, it's kind of this. There's always conferences and there's these events, right? And if you're in the broader psychology world of maybe psychiatry and counseling and stuff coming together, are you seeing some fruits from that or some more active? Do you all collaborate, I guess, across disciplines under the broad psychology as much as you think you could, or do you think there's value in that? I mean, I guess otherwise it's like, what are those key aspects of partnerships and the networks that you're trying to foster and create?
Sure. So I think that the majority of the collaboration probably happens per licensure level. A lot of the information that somebody who is a psychologist or a psychiatrist, they're going to be needing different continuing education type of stuff each year. Licensure cycle is going to be very different than what somebody who's a master's level therapist needs, right? And so we may work up a little bit, but they're not likely to work kind of at our conference level, right? Just because it wouldn't be as beneficial for them. Now, depending on the conference, it wouldn't be a bad idea, right? But a lot of the time, those requirements for our continuing education are pretty specific, and so they might not get as much. So on a, continuing education level, there's not going to be a ton of collaboration there. We bring, for our state marriage and family therapy conference, we do bring in psychiatrists and, doctoral level people to speak with our population because that's super relevant, but you're probably not going to find a lot of master's level clinicians at a, psychiatry conference.
But what about I guess now maybe more looking at the perspective of the client, or when you need to refer them out. And how does that look as far as their journey, if you will, to get to be more well? I don't know, not to get healed, but in getting the services that they need. Is there this progression of they might work from you, and you're like, okay, we're going to keep working with you and on a frequent basis, but you're also going to we need to refer you out for something else.
Sure.
And then maybe that ends, and they keep coming back, and you I guess that's kind of where I'm getting at. What does that network look like for the complete perpetual journey of someone who's going to need perpetual care?
Sure. So that I think depends entirely on what the presenting problem is and then what's the client's goal around therapy, right? So let's say for somebody who comes in and they are seeking couples counseling and you have got one partner who is just highly anxious and they're really struggling to kind of be in the session to session therapy space because that anxiety is so high. I may have a conversation with them that just says, do you feel like some individual work would assist with some coping skills that I don't have the same capacity in the couple's context to kind of give that person, all of my attention? And I do an individual session with those people, and there's some assessment that happens in there that will typically help me figure out, are they going to be okay in this couple's context, or do I need to make a referral to make sure that they both are having some individual support as well? But that anxiety may be higher than what they're able to come in and hear. I do a lot of affair recovery work, right? So if that couple is in here and this partner just has off the charts anxiety, which is understandable, but we can't get that regulated enough to have some sort of repair conversation, then that may be an incident where I say, what would it look like for us to talk about, an appointment with a psychiatrist so that you could just know what your options are over there. I'm never going to push it. It's never, I won't say never. It would have to be pretty extreme for me to say, hey, I can't see you anymore unless you, right? I don't use unless very often. There's got to be really like a client safety issue in order for that to come out of my mouth, because I think that the client's autonomy is really key. So there is a lot of collaboration with that within the practice. And that's another reason why having people who have the same specialty or kind of clinical population is important, because I may be working with a couple and I need somebody in the practice who I know has a similar lens to be able to see these two people individually. And so I can send that person or that couple to other clinicians in the practice, and they can do that individual work that then helps with what we've got going on in the couple's context. And we do that quite a bit up there, right? We also have some people that are on our referral list, other clinicians that we trust in the area that we refer out for that too, right? Where we just know, okay, we don't have somebody here that does this, or I really need somebody who has these hours, right? Or bills this insurance. So things like that. So I think that there's a good bit of partnership in that space. We don't have a psychiatrist that's our kind of go-to. We do have a referral list, and that's kind of what we send, and it's shaped largely by the feedback that we get from clients. If they've had a negative experience and we get like 2 clients that are like, whoa, don't go there, they come off of our list, because it's important to us that those referrals that exist outside of the practice, those clinicians, whoever they are showing up and serving people the same way that we do. And so that really shapes who's on those referral lists.
Yeah, that's been, thinking back through the several episodes I've done, even like National Children's Advocacy Center. Yeah. So like kind of in my mind, piecing together a person, that front door, and someone's in that front door and does that initial triage and services, and then they're going to reach out to you, and then you're going to perform your work, and then maybe you reach out to someone else, right? But just how wonderful to have that network, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's definitely other practices in town where their therapists are, like Elizabeth uses some DBT skills, right? But there's a clinic in town, and that's their population, right? Is that dialectical behavioral therapy, and the requirements for DBT, it's a much more hands-on than anybody who's up at the practice can offer, right? They meet multiple times a week with people, and there's usually small groups and things like that. And so we use skills of that, but nobody offers straight DBT therapy, right? So we need to be able to have somebody that we can refer to for that, so that that's covered, right? Because we do get people in where we need to be able to support that particular therapy need as well.
I think this would be a good time for you to talk about an exciting thing coming up, because I think this ties in well to networks and filling needs and looking for gaps, to be filled. So
I'm super excited. So probably 2-ish years ago, really started noticing that regardless of the network that we had built and the people that we had added to our referral list, we're just getting so many calls for therapy that, people needed an option, and they didn't have any insurance, or their insurance doesn't cover mental health stuff. And we have a partnership that we started, I guess it's been 2.5 years ago, with the link of Coleman County. And so our clinical interns work down there and do pro bono to the client counseling. And that's been a really cool program that's allowed us to kind of capture a demographic of people who need services but can't afford them. And I love that. I think when I was here last time, I just shared, that population is really near and dear to my heart. I think that access to mental health care is something that should just be and should not be a right, or a privilege. It's a right. And so being able to figure out how to close that gap has been really on my heart for the last couple of years. As people's work situations have changed and financial situations have changed, and just seeing how post-pandemic life has impacted families and people in general, and the ratio of people who are seeking mental health services compared to the people who are available to provide those. I mean, that is greatly skewed in the state of Alabama, everywhere, but greatly skewed in the state of Alabama. And so about 2 years ago, the program that had kind of been stirring under the surface for a little while really started coming to fruition. And so I started having some conversations behind the scenes, and then January of 2025 started interviewing some people for a board position for the nonprofit that I'm launching. And so January 2026, we are launching what's called Mindful Roots. And our mission is to stand in the financial gap of mental health services. So we will be applying for grants and also doing private donations and corporate sponsorships, and really trying to raise those funds that will then be used towards counseling scholarships. So people will be able to apply for those, and there's we've got a whole rubric built, right, where people will be able to kind of see our review committee will look those over and make sure that the people who really have the greatest need for that are receiving those services first and foremost. And the scholarships will be built on $4 amount levels, and really are going to cover the bulk of the people that are on our clinical partner list, so that those people who have the greatest need should be receiving a full scholarship that will cover them going to anywhere on there with really no out-of-pocket cost. And this has been something that I'm really, really pumped about. Our team has been just rooting this on for the past couple years, and doing all the work, but we have been networking our little tails off and figuring out who do we need to be talking to. And so we're this close. We're this close.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it's
Congrats.
really exciting. Thank you. Yeah.
So take me back to when you first had this idea. Were you driving home from work one day and it's pressing your mind, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And you called someone?
So honestly, I knew from the get-go, grad school, because I think I had shared in the last episode that I was here, in my grad school time, I worked at Inside Out Ministries, and I did about 2 years of pro bono counseling there while I was working towards graduation, and completely fell in love with that population of people who really, need and are seeking mental health services, but financially they just can't put anything towards that, right? It's the difference between them choosing to feed their kids for the week or come in and get some support in order to kind of gradually work themselves out of the cycle that they're in. And that has been on my heart since grad school, right, in 2016. And so I have always known that there would be another layer of this, and I have worked into solid ground as much accessibility as I can. And our team is so incredible, and so many of the people up there see clients at, way below what their posted rate is and stuff like that. But being able to kind of layer this on came about 2 years ago, when I knew that we would be, at some point we would kind of graduate out of having So I don't know that I was really driving home. I think it was more just realizing that, the more phone calls that I took where people were saying, we really need to get in. No, we can't even afford that. And, okay, here's your other options for free and reduced counseling in the area. And people saying, we already tried that, or we had a bad experience, right? And that's so hard to hear. Like when your heart is really for the person, if I could figure out how to give 40 hours of counseling, a week to people, I would do it. Yeah. But that does not pay the rent. And I feel like my landlord would probably be upset with that choice. So that really was where I started kind of talking to people in the community and different, shout out to Megan over at Flourish. She's my sounding board for so much business stuff where I'm like, am I crazy? And she's like, yeah, but it's still a good idea, So
you're neurodivergent.
So she's like, I think you'll be fine. So, really just being able to kind of run those ideas past people and say, here's where I'm going with this. What do you think? And the feedback was honestly pretty good. So I started going to some of the different nonprofit stuff in the area, the Navigate conference and stuff like that, to just kind of get a little bit of an idea of the landscape and figure out who's out there and who would we partner with and how would we even make this a thing. And I didn't know of anybody else that was doing something like that, but also maybe they did exist. And if so, that would save me 2 years of work, right? But the more that I looked, it just didn't. And so it became pretty clear the end of, what year are we in now? So the end of 2024, really going into Christmas that year, I told my husband, like, hey, the time is here. And this is really something that I'm supposed to be working on, And so, January 25, I hit the ground running, and I got several no's in the beginning, right? And I had a couple people say, this is nuts, and I was like, yeah, I know.
nuts for the nuts.
And here's the thing, like, that doesn't mean it's not necessary, right? And that doesn't mean that it doesn't need to happen. So I get that it's a huge undertaking, but for the right person, it's going to be a yes. And so I think that the timing of launching it at that point in my career at Solid Ground was probably excellent, because having spoken with so many people in the community up until that point and having some, successes in conversation, but also kind of growing a little bit of a thicker skin and realizing that a no from somebody is usually about kind of where they're at in life and not so much about me, was really, really valuable, because it allowed me to kind of take some of that feedback that they were giving me and keep what was helpful and shed the rest and kind of go on to the next one. And I had some people who were no's that were also really upfront about why it was a no, right? This was not a good season for them based on what they were doing and what they had going on, right? But hey, I'm here for this part of the project if you need me. And so that was really encouraging too. And so late summer 25, my board members kind of fell in place like dominoes. And we've spent the last 6 months really hitting the ground running with getting our website put together and, the lawyer getting all of our bylaws and everything in place. And so, we're right around the corner, and I'm pumped to open that up. And
Mindful Roots. Now, what happened in grad school? What was it that
really changed that?
Was
for
it
that
a project
population?
or something you did? Was it somebody you?
So when I was searching for a site, we had moved here from Fort Campbell, and I was trying to find somewhere to do my grad school internship and just could not find anywhere to do that at. And so as I talked to people and they said, come back after you've graduated, oh, we don't work with clinical interns, things like that. I kept in my head going, I'm never going to graduate if somebody doesn't take me on. Yeah. And so I ended up sending an email to Inside Out Ministries,
Right.
and they allowed me to, be in that population. But one of their requirements was that I could not charge for those services because using their building, the restrictions of their nonprofit prohibited me from doing so.
Oh, okay.
Which also worked really good at the time because the accreditation for the marriage and family therapy program actually didn't allow clinical interns to get paid way back in the day. That has changed, thankfully. But that setup was perfect. And honestly, I think it was exactly what I needed because like where God's taken things over the past couple of years, those early days really shaped that for me. And so that population, a lot of those people were individuals who were receiving other services at Inside Out Ministries, right? They were already there getting food assistance or rent assistance, and then finding out that they could also talk with a therapist. And
Right.
I mean, deep apologies to so many of the people I saw at that time because I was as green as they come. But
Right.
I learned so much from that population and really seeing them show up when, I can look back and there are still people where it just like chokes me up. They would show up in between dialysis appointments and, they were taking public transportation or getting rides way across town to come and see me. And I didn't know anything about anything at that point. And just sitting with people's stories and them having somebody who was listening to them, and that really was where the impact of trauma it really began to take shape in my brain of how impactful trauma is, right? And intergenerational trauma and that stuff that happens to us where we're really young and we don't know the impact of that, right? And so learning through that early population and just seeing how they showed up when there was so little that they had tangibly, right? Like all of the things that society tells us are measures of success, like this population did not have any of that, right? Most of them did not have their own vehicles. They were one of 5 outfits that they owned in their, entire wardrobe every time they came in. There were so many people that came in that don't have running water, right? So they're in my office, haven't showered in a week because they haven't been able to get up to wherever it is that they take a weekly shower, and seeing how they were showing up and just kind of chipping away at what they had going on. That was really where I was like, this is why we exist, right? Like
But the
this
key
is
is
why.
The key was it was free for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So in the context of last episode, when we talked about Inside Out, it was more about you getting your start, you getting a chance to obviously finish your studies, right? Finish your
I
requirements.
did graduate, yeah.
But it gave you, and you also had said like, well, I know that I have liked being able to pick my schedule and my hours, so
Yeah.
I don't plan to work for someone. I'm going to start my own thing. Now, in the context of this, obviously, you answered the question by saying, well, these people came to you because it was free.
Yeah.
And they
Absolutely.
were already going to Inside Out Christian Ministry.
Some of them, yeah.
Some of them.
Yeah.
And getting other assistance. And now this is just one nice additional thing on the a la carte menu that they can have access to.
Yeah.
However, that's probably not always the case.
Right.
Where you're going to get free services.
Yeah, and that's a thing. So the scholarship underneath of Mindful Roots will be structured in such a way that the applicants, as they're filling out that form, the eligibility form, as they're verifying, finances and things like that, people who are awarded a scholarship will be awarded a dollar amount kind of per that financial need. So it's not that all of the services will be provided for free. We're, obviously trying to stretch it at that point, but they'll be able to then pick from our clinical partner list and choose a therapist who's a good fit for them, right? So kind of going back to the graphic you had up there earlier where you're like, oh, Dalal sees these people and Hannah sees these people and Elizabeth sees these people, rather than getting who you get and don't throw a fit. You get to choose somebody who may specialize in or looks like you, right? Or they've got an idea of how to work with your particular presenting problem. And that has really been a huge part of the why behind Mindful Roots as well, is I want people to be able to choose a therapist who's really going to be instrumental in them getting their therapeutic goals met, because they get to choose that person and the finances piece is not going to stand in the way.
Yeah.
And that's why we're doing what we're doing.
This is why I love doing this podcast, because I think back to the roots of every. I think it was 1984 with the National Children's Advocacy Center, but that all just became because there was a case with this young boy, and they didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so then that led to everything that it is now. This massive effort and funding behind it. And then I look at the AIDS clinic. I'm trying to remember. Mimar is her name, right? Thrive, Alabama.
Yeah.
And the whole AIDS epidemic and trying to get away from that mystique of things, but they're in the same trying to give people services.
Yeah.
And now, and this, and then the homeless shelters or the shower up, where the guy has this awesome service to get a shower to someone that might be homeless, but at least they can go and be presentable at a job interview and have an address so that they can get a job and put the address of First Stop, for example.
Yep.
So
all
of
many
this
good places.
So now it's like, oh, well, of course this makes sense, right? To mental health, and it's this, it's a natural progression, I guess, but it's not only natural because there's a lot of people who have to push it.
Yes.
It needs an engine behind it.
Yeah.
To put it to the forefront of like, this is critical because this isn't just like. Yeah, I think the thing that's hard when you're 50 and you grew up in the 70s or 80s and we didn't seem, I guess if people had anxiety and depression, all that, I mean, nobody talked about it.
I mean, probably
they probably did.
They were
probably
smoking,
all
so everything was chill.
Undiagnosed, but like, so I can't. My remedy can't be like to tell someone just to suck it up.
Right.
It's in your head. Like, well, no, this is here.
Sure.
It's prevalent, and we all need to change the way we go about lots of things to say, okay, well, how do I then better adapt to this umbrella? And like, oh my gosh, like all these things like was dysphagia, or like, I don't even know what that is, but somebody's struggling with it, and you look at your list of your let's go back to that.
Which is not an all-inclusive. This is kind of the main things.
That's just a lot, though.
Yeah, if you're struggling with something else, give us a call. There's probably somebody at the office. And if we don't, here's the thing. We've got somebody who does. And so we'll give you a name for that as well.
So then, I guess tied to the network. So within Solid Ground and your client's journey, there's going to be times, I guess, where they will see multiple clinicians based on like if they're there for body image.
Okay.
And then from that, there might be something comes out and there's some men's issues and Dalal doesn't do it, but Jasmine does. Like, is there some of that where, and I guess you have to be somewhat sensitive to that, right? They're probably just not there and they're just going to meet with whomever, right? They're going to build a relationship, but what does that kind of look like when you need to have a handoff?
Yeah. So one of two things, and this is another reason why my team is incredible. So there are typically 2 or more people who specialize in something, right? And so as people are calling and we're kind of trying to figure out who's the best fit for them to start with, a little bit of that goes back to the triage before, right? They may have like 4 things that are kind of overwhelming in their life, but I'll talk about, okay, what feels like the foundational thing? Or the client may not have that information, but as I'm thinking about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs or something like that, I'm kind of going, okay, if I was going to plug you in with somebody, here's what I think would be a kind of best starting place. How do you feel about that? If so, here's who I would encourage you to start with. And in our system, it's a drop-down arrow to reassign somebody to another therapist. And so it's not like they have to do a ton of work, right? The paperwork start is a little bit intensive. So let's say that they start with Jasmine, and she's seeing a youth who has ADHD and maybe some behavioral problems, and she gets a good bit of work done with that person. But in the course of working with that youth, she actually discovers that there is some neurodivergence in that space that exceeds her particular area of specialty. Or what's going to happen more often than not is she's going to say, Elizabeth's actually a much better fit for this particular client. And our goal is that the client gets the best therapeutic fit, right? So if that client wins, the team wins, period, the end, regardless of who's assigned to that case. And so she's going to have a consult with Elizabeth and say, hey, I've got some buddy who's struggling with H. We're not sharing any PHI, right? But, I really think that this would be a better fit. Is it okay if I share that information, right? And so Jasmine may be sharing with that client, hey, here's why I think Elizabeth will be a really good fit. At the end of the day, that client has the choice to stay with Jasmine or not, but Jasmine's going to outline why is it that
Gotcha.
Staying here versus going to Elizabeth might benefit you. And so then when that handoff happens, the client gets to really choose how much information. Sometimes those therapists will have a consultation so that there can be a little bit handoff, but often our team will also just do a co-session, right? So Elizabeth and Jasmine will sit in on that same session, and the handoff can kind of happen that way just to make sure that there's a good fit there. So something like that may happen. The other option is they may be working together, and maybe the therapist is Jasmine and the client really wants to stay with Jasmine. Then Jasmine is going to have a consult with Elizabeth about that particular neurodivergence item. So again, not sharing any particular client information, but she's going to dig a little bit deeper and have a consultation with Elizabeth, like, hey, how do I show up and best help a client with this presentation? And so those collaborations may happen in that way where there's a little bit of a case consultation. And so then she's able to grab into that. Or somebody may call and talk to Dalal about that, right? If they've got an eating disorder question and, hey, how do I really help this person? What's a good starting place? They don't want to switch, right? That can be kind of scary for people, but how do I make sure I'm showing up? And so we share a lot of expertise within the office as well from that, because again, that client's outcome is really our priority. So nobody's gatekeeping information, right? Like, how do we help that person get where they want to get?
Is there anything else you wanted to cover related to solid ground before we do some fun things?
I don't think so. Not that I can think of.
All right.
It's Friday, y'all.
Want to do some fun things?
Sure.
Okay, we're going to do the quick six again.
Uh-oh. Okay.
This will hopefully be quicker, but I do have one hypothetical that I'll ask you at the end that I don't think I asked you last time.
Okay.
That I'd love to ask. Dream car.
Oh, gosh. For the longest time, a Porsche 911, but y'all, that Genesis GV80 has got me in a chokehold right now. And every time I'm driving my car and that passes on the road, woo!
Really?
Oh, God. Yep. I don't even care what color. It's beautiful.
That's one of their SUVs?
Yes.
Hyundai Genesis?
Yeah.
GV80? Okay.
Yeah.
A state you haven't been to that you are dying to get to?
Oh, dying to get to. Currently on that list is probably Wyoming.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I haven't really been anywhere up there to the cold stuff.
Well,
it's growing on me.
My Wyoming story. We drive through Wyoming to drop my kids off to go to school in Idaho.
Okay.
Utah. I'm from Utah originally, so but we were in Rock Springs, Wyoming. What year was it? 23 or 22? I can't remember. I drove my son Jason out there.
Okay.
And we stop off I-80. So when you go to, you can go up through Jackson Hole off of I-80, and then to get up into the part of Idaho we were in. But we stop in Rock Springs, Wyoming, and ate at this incredible. I had this Singapore lo mein at like a Renegade Cafe.
Okay.
So it's like just like typical like interstate town, Waffle House, Burger King.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find something that what do the locals go to? We tried to go to a Mexican restaurant that was cash only. Like what? Like we had to leave. So we go to the Renegade Cafe, and it was unbelievable. I've never had Singapore lo mein. And I'm like, all the places in this country, and Rock Springs is not the prettiest area of Wyoming.
Okay.
And it's just dirt kind of around, right? Just that deserty thing.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful to people, right? But like, there's beautiful parts of Wyoming, not that part.
Okay.
And but I still think about that meal. It was just like, I don't know. You think about the meals or the drinks you've had in life and where you were.
Yeah.
That I don't think I've ever ordered it since because I don't want to ruin it. And I want to order Singapore lo mein.
You got to go back there.
I just have to go back there.
Yeah, it has set the bar very high.
Yeah,
I love that.
You love it out there.
Okay.
Have you been to Montana or like?
No, so nowhere out there. I've not been to Colorado or Montana or So, but I grew up in Illinois, so for a long time I've been very against visiting anywhere cold while it's winter. And so my husband is really excited and looking forward to doing like a Christmas break somewhere where we get like massively snowed in. And it's taken me about 10 years, but I'm warm into the idea. So maybe when the kids graduate,
It's different too. We're driving out there and, we spent most of our life in Virginia. Now we're here. The South and the East, they're rednecks, right? When we think about the you know, the rednecks. And so we're driving out there, and then my son says, you know, this is kind of these guys are cowboys, aren't they? I was like, yeah, they're cowboys out here. It's a different redneck.
Yeah.
But it's just so fun to like go to that region, and just it's vast,
Yeah.
right? In the sky, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. We've been going out. My grandparents are still my grandma is in California, and we went out spring break of 2025.
Like northern?
She is in Palm Springs.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's desert.
Yeah, so we hiked in like 4 different areas out there while we were out, and like went out to Joshua Tree, and it's just stunning. And we've totally fallen in love with Arizona over the past few years. So we've hiked all over.
Northern?
We did a week of fall break, I think it was 24, Tonto National Forest, and just kind of all around the like Phoenix area. But we ended up over in Nevada as well, and Red Rock Canyon and stuff like that. So my kids are obsessed with bouldering, and we haven't broken anything yet. So
like we Grand Junction, Colorado was awesome. We went to the whole there's just places
all right.
everywhere.
I'll bump it up the list.
So Wyoming, Rock Springs, Renegade Cafe.
My husband will be so excited because he loves lau meins.
And then when you drive through Nebraska, you'll go to Runza, because it's like a fast food that's only there, and they have the Runza sandwich.
Okay.
And the bread is like amazingly good.
Okay.
And you're just kind of like, why didn't this catch on anywhere else? You know, sometimes you just wonder.
This little pocket of delicious up there.
Like, this is very delicious. But
that's hilarious.
Okay, so let's see. Where's a country in the world where your friends or others have said, "Oh, I can't wait to go," or we went and did it, and you're like, "No, thanks, I'm not going there." It could even be a state. Let's say if it's not a country. Oh
goodness.
Where's somewhere you're like, I'm not interested in going there.
I'm not particularly excited about visiting Germany. I mean, it's like up there, I guess, if people go and they're like, hey, here's a free plane ticket. I would go, but I would rather go, I don't know, probably anywhere else. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Give me one of your proudest accomplishments before the age of 16.
Oh my gosh.
Got to go in the Wayback Machine on this.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like, whoa, I hit 40 last year, so that was a long time ago.
You should write these things down too sometimes.
I actually was just talking about this the other day with somebody, though, so that's so funny, because when I was growing up and I was in 4-H, there was a time, I mean, I wasn't driving yet, so I definitely wasn't 16. I got to apply for... I'm not even entirely sure what the position was called, but we lived in Springfield, which is what the state capital of Illinois is, even though nobody knows that. And so our 4-H group had a cool little program that was allowed people to apply to be able to go in and sit in on a legislative session as a junior lobbyist. And I got selected for that. And so, I was probably 12 or 13, maybe, tiny Rachel with this giant blazer, right? With these huge
long sleeves,
shoulder pad, definitely long sleeves. And, striding into the Capitol. And I was just really proud of that, because I think we had to do an essay and maybe some sort of like verbal interview or whatever.
And they picked you.
Yeah. And there was only like 12 or 13 people, and our 4-H county was enormous. So being able to go for that was like really neat. And I think too, that's kind of where I fell in love with like the law side of family policy and just how that really shapes people. So
I'm going to come back to your county, but I'm going to segue it by asking this next question. Give me an obscure fact that for some reason you can't get out of your mind. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I, for some reason, can never forget that the Louisiana Purchase was in 1803 when Thomas Jefferson was president. And it's this obscure fact that I can't forget. But so is there something that you surprise yourself with? Like, why do I still remember that?
Oh, that's
you know what I mean?
Interesting.
Nothing.
I don't know that anything lives like rent free in my head.
You
like
still remember
that.
like a high school crush's phone number or something? I still remember some of my girlfriend's numbers when I was 12.
No, but I do think that my first boyfriend and my husband's first wife share like a birthday or something.
Okay.
So that's probably the only fact. I mean, I don't think about that frequently. No, it was my first husband and his first wife, and they share the same birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's weird.
Well, maybe they're together now.
They're definitely not, but yeah. Bless both of them.
This is where my memory, like, was it Sangamon County? Saginaw? Is that where you're from?
Sangamon, yeah.
I was just, for some reason, that popped into my mind because you had said 4 years ago, like, I haven't said that in 25 years because you were thinking back. We were talking about 4-H and stuff.
Yeah, love 4-H.
Okay, here's my last one.
Okay.
This is my hypothetical. You're downtown at the Probst Arena. Do you guys go to the concerts and stuff, or like at the Mark Smith Concert Hall?
Yeah, I love like the ballet and the theater and stuff like that. I'm not really like a concert person. But
all right, so let's say it's Friday night. You and Sam are leaving the theater, and let's say the Havoc have also played. And everyone's leaving the Probst Arena at the same time, and you're leaving this, and it's a beautiful May evening, and there's tons of people downtown. But you guys get in your car, and for some reason, you're the only ones that were allowed to kind of drive that little road that's always under construction, by the way, in front of the Probst Arena.
Forever, yeah.
And you want people. You're gonna turn the radio up loud, and you're gonna crank a song. And you're not going to be embarrassed, and you have the windows down, and you're going to be singing out loud to your heart's content to some song, and you want everyone to hear it. What song is it?
The first song that just popped into my head was Deanna Carter, Did I Shave My Legs for This?
Okay. I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah.
Did I shave my legs?
Did I shave my legs for this? She's like talking about that's so random. That's not even my favorite song by her.
That's pretty funny.
That is funny. Yeah, she is like preparing a meal for her husband, and basically he just ignores her all the time, right? And so she's like singing to herself while she's getting stuff ready, and yeah, she's like, I bought this new dress.
And would Sam sing along with you in the car?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Old country is like his jam. Yeah.
Well, you have any shout outs? Any final thoughts?
Oh my gosh. I just want to give a shout out to my team. Again, everybody is incredible. Watch out for us in 2026. We're doing some really cool things. We're creating some partnerships that I think are really just going to be neat in the mental health space this year. And then my nonprofit board is just a collection of really incredible, happens to be all women right now. That's, if you are a guy and you're interested, give me a shout out. But they have been just such a supportive sounding board. And I mean, the way that they're showing up right now to make something happen that is really my dream, right? But the work that they've put in and what they've done so far to make this a reality so that people in the area have access to mental health care is just incredible. And so, yeah, Mona, Callista, Ambrosia, I appreciate you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks for being the first episode back.
Yes.
This will be episode 123.
Oh, my gosh.
And,
congratulations.
Thank you. You know what's so funny? I now remember. I remember earlier when I had a senior moment.
Oh, yeah. I told you.
And I couldn't remember. I was trying earlier in the episode. I was just trying to say that you were the last episode before I changed, like a lot in the studio changed after you left, and the way I shot the show and all, I don't know. But so like in my head, I know that 38 became like this new thing I did. And then when I got to like 82, like that's the way I think in numbers.
Okay.
The next big iteration changed. And then when I got to 105 and now 123 will always be Rachel's back. And the studio you're still against the same flag. Yeah. But a lot of time went by.
The studio looks
but
amazing.
I still like this flag. We were at home this morning.
Yeah.
At Home is my favorite store.
That place is amazing.
And my very first episode, I was probably there trying to figure out like what plant. Ricky from the Trash Pandas was my first guest, and I bought a plant that I used for 4 episodes, and I got rid of the plant, and I've just been like experimenting, right?
Yeah.
But so for me, I feel like now you have two very 37 and 123 mean something to me.
Yeah,
as far as
a lotto on those numbers or something.
Studio. Yeah, exactly. Hey, well, did you do anything exciting for your 40th?
We had a pajama party. So a couple of my therapist friends came over actually the night before, because that was like leading into Thanksgiving break. And so they came over the Thursday before my birthday, and we did like a 5:30 to 8, because everybody's got little kids except for me, PJ party where we just like had fun snacks and ate birthday cake, and then everybody rolled out, and I was already in my pajamas.
Boom.
And I was like, I don't know that I'll ever do a birthday different than this for the rest of my life, because it was incredible. So PJ parties are where it's at.
How many books did you read last year?
55.
The year before in 2021, you were like 42 or 43. So 55.
Yeah, that's funny. I was just looking at those stats. 57 in 2023, 54 in 24.
This is in your Google sheet where you track it?
It's not in my Google Sheets, in my Samsung notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thanks.
And are you taking care of yourself and your mental?
Yeah, the break has been really fun. I've done
Wellness.
a lot of downtime, hanging out with the family, game nights, stuff like that. A lot of runs to the coffee shop with my daughter, who's about to be 17. That's our favorite bonding thing. So, I get invited. Do you want to go get coffee? Which is code for please use your gas and debit card to purchase me some coffee.
You get a lot of that.
Yeah. So,
hey, what are you guys doing tonight?
Yeah.
I guess we're buying you dinner.
Yeah.
Let's get together.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
Hey, thanks again, Rachel, for coming in.
For sure. Thanks
and
for having
all
me.
the best and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
All right, take care.